All right, take 25. Should we try this again? Is there anybody over there? All right. Well, everybody, my name's Tim Epworth. I'm here at Fly Fishing Bover Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying, and I'm excited to bring you another quick tie. Tonight we are working on Season 4, Episode 14. We are going to be tying the Kwan Fly. This little beauty right here, a little shrimp pattern, one of our final saltwater patterns of the season. Okay, if you are like me, you're going to be tying out of your Season 4 kit. All right, so go ahead and grab this. Like I said, grab that episode 14. If you don't already have one of these, head on over to www.flyfishingbover.com/TNLS4, and you can still grab one of these today. More importantly, if you're here tuning in with us, please like and subscribe this video. Let us know that you are in here. Drop a comment. We want to know that you're part of the replay squad. And if you hit that little bell icon, it'll notify you every time we put out a new video. All right, guys, let's head over to the vise. Let's get started. Tonight I am tying with a UTC 70 in brown. All right, we got our saltwater hook in our vise here. Let's go ahead and get our thread started just behind the eye. We're going to work it back a short distance, and we'll trim out our tag. Now we're going to be tying in some bead chain eyes up here at the front, but we want to leave ourselves a decent amount of space, about an eye length and a half back from the eye, because we need to have some space to put in a weed guard on this fly, as it calls for in this pattern. So let's go ahead and grab our bead chain eyes. Let's get them fixed to the top side of this hook. So this is going to ride with the hook up. Okay, let's get those good and attached. We've gone through these bead chain eyes, lead eyes multiple times. So let's just get a good figure eights down, making sure we're really getting those secured before we move on, because the last thing we want is for those to move. Make sure they're good and even. If they look like they're a little off kilter, you just put a little bit more wraps in front of it to wedge it the other direction. Once you get it where you want it to, put a few extras in just around the eyes themselves. It pulls all those thread together. Lock it in. And it doesn't ever hurt if you want to just touch it with some UV resin or super glue to really secure them. Make sure they're not going anywhere. That won't hurt anything either. Let's go ahead and let's head on to the back side of the fly here. We're going to go all the way down. We're going to go just into the edge of the bend on this fly. Okay, we'll leave our thread here momentarily. Now, this pattern calls for a little saddle hackle or a little hackle piece here. Doesn't have to be fine. We're not using our good hackle, because this is meant to actually just simulate legs and to also prop up the tail of this fly. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead with this and pull out the fluffies at the bottom. Okay, there's always that natural underside of the feather. It's the duller side color. Okay, I'm going to put that towards the back. I'm going to tie this in right here at the back of the fly. Okay, make sure I get it good and secured. Put some wraps in front and behind, and then cinch down a little ways on that stem, because we want to make sure that that doesn't go anywhere when we start wrapping. So I like to leave a little bit of the stem down and wrap up and over it. Then I'm going to come back and leave my thread just ahead of the point of the hook. And now we're just going to take some wraps on this hook and stack up this hackle. We're probably going to do somewhere between 3 and 5 wraps right here at the back. Kind of depends on how long your hackle feather is and how much you want to put in here. I'm going to land on 4 is going to be my magical number. I'm going to lock that down right there. Some thread wraps in front, some thread wraps behind as always. Go ahead and trim that tag out. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to drive a few thread wraps back over top of these, just to kind of push them rearward a little bit. So I'm going to pull them all back, try to get a good grip on them so I'm not pinning too many of them down. We just want to make sure that we gather them all back to here and they're standing up right at the back of the fly. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is you've got a whole bunch of, you could use wool, you could use EP fibers, you could use even craft fur. Okay, we're just going to grab some of this stuff, just a decent pinch. Doesn't need to be super thick. We want this to be roughly 2 to 3 times the overall length of the hook itself, the hook shank itself. So if I were to measure this, that's 1, that's 2, that's roughly 3. Okay, it's going to be a long tail hanging out the back here. Okay, now I'm going to set it right on top of that hackle, just like that. Switch hands, tie that in, tie it down nice and firm. I'm going to take some thread wraps forward, and you're going to see it. I'm just going to keep pushing this forward a ways because I want to have a nice even underbody for this next portion of the fly. So I'll come in here and I will trim this out. And that worked out just perfectly. Now I'm going to take some thread wraps and pinch that down right up to the eyes, just like that. Happy with that. We're going to come back and do something with this tail in a little bit, but for now we're just going to leave it just like that. Okay. Now, similar to other crab patterns that we've done in the past, although this isn't a crab pattern, we tie in materials quite similarly. So I'll show you this right here. We're tying this a lot like we did the last crab pattern we did, where we took those pieces and we tie them in. We're going to trim them up later, but we tie them in just like we did dumbbell eyes. So what I'm going to start with is you have this EP fiber, okay? So we're going to pull it and cut it into little sections that are, roughly 1 inch long. We're going to alternate colors. So we have some yellow and some brown. So we're going to go brown first, then yellow, then brown, then yellow, then brown. Okay, we should have enough to do kind of probably 3 brown and 2 yellow. So what I'm going to do is start by laying this right up against where I finished with that EP fiber. So I put a cross wrap in. I'm going to pull it over, run my thread behind on the other side. And I'm going to do it just like that. It's no different than how I tied in those bead chain eyes, okay? Once I've got that, I can tug it back, make sure it's good and snug, pull it rearward, and then now that I have it rearward, I want to drive some thread wraps right up against it, okay? And we're going to tie the next piece in right there. If you have a gator clamp, this is always a good time to grab one. It just holds everything out of your way. I really like using those. Okay, next one I'm going to do is I'm going to come here with a yellow one. Okay, I'm going to come in here and do the exact same thing. Wrap on that side. Bring it over, do a wrap on this side, and then do a couple of figure eights before I grab it. Pull it, make sure I have an even amount on both sides, and I can pull it back, tie it against the other one. Take some thread wraps. We're just going to repeat the process a couple times. So now you can see I've got a couple here. Okay, so I'm going to pull those back, clamp it down. I'm going to go in and grab another brown one. Set it down right here. Just going to repeat that process again. Do my cross wraps. Once you get good at this part, it goes real quick. You just keep adding layers, adding layers. Pull off your gator clamp. So I should have brown, yellow, brown. We'll do yellow and then brown one more time. Lay the yellow in again. Cross wraps once more. You want to do the cross wraps about 3 times on each side before you kind of pull it. You see I wiggle it back and forth, so I tip this towards you so you can see it. I like to kind of wiggle it back and forth and then pull it rearward. And then I drive my dam wraps up against it. Okay, just like that. Again, I'll pull that gator clamp. Get that back down again, and I'm going to go in with my last one. And this last one's going to be brown again. Get that one pushed down. I got that, unfortunately, attached a little too far up. There we go. Grab those, even it out. I'm going to do one more cross wrap just to make sure it's good and secured. Pull it back like we do the last time. Pinch it tight. Take some thread wraps. Okay. Now I'm going to do a few added here. This is just kind of the end of this work for these flies. Or for these fibers, so I'm just going to finish this up by just putting a good stack of wraps in there so I know it's not going anywhere. I'm going to throw in a half hitch, just a little save button, saving our work. I'll pull this off, and now as you can see when I pull that up, we'll get that real cool 2 different colors. We're going to trim that here in just a moment. So what we want to do is we want to start with it being a little bit thinner. So sorry, the angle is going to be smaller at the front to a little bit wider at the back. So how we can do that and how I'm going to do it here is I'm going to show you. I'm going to pull the tail back so it's away from the fibers. I'm going to pull both of the stacks up together. I'm going to start with my scissors low with an angle up and trim. And when I turn this back over and flatten them out, you're going to see how awesome that shape turned out. Boom. All right, that's what we're looking out of this Kwan Fly. If you need to make a few little adjustments to length, or you got some little hairs that are fibers that are out on their own, just go ahead and fix those. Oh, try not to sneeze. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's gone. Okay, we're good. All right, last piece of the puzzle on this material, on the material front, is we got to add in our weed guard. So super advantageous to have a weed guard on a fly like this if you're fishing somewhere where you're going to encounter some weeds. So what we're going to do is we have this heavy piece of monofilament that we gave you, okay? Now this has a natural curve to it already, okay? So it already wants to go a certain direction. So I'm going to basically tie it in at the halfway mark, and I'm going to use the natural curve that's already here to lean it down, and I'm going to tie in one side, kind of almost like a rubber leg, and then I'm going to fold over the other side, and then we can kind of adjust where this is sitting so that we make sure it covers the hooks itself. So what I'm going to do is I'll try not to block in view here, but I'm going to hold it at that side knowing that angle is already in that mono, kind of wanting to send it back. And I'm just going to really take some hard thread wraps, get that kind of suited like that, okay? So you can see it hanging down low. I might adjust it a smidge. Now I'm going to take this piece up here and I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to almost pinch it down, and I'm going to hold them together for a moment and then try to get some wraps over and up on top of the mono on this side. So when I show you from the top, you can tell that I've doubled that over, and it almost looks like a little bill on there, okay? I was able to double it over. Now that's probably headed straight back, and you're thinking, well, that's not protecting the hook. Just bear with me, okay? I'm going to show you how we're going to make this work. So most importantly right now is we need to secure this down. So take a whole bunch of thread wraps, make sure that's not going anywhere, take some ahead of it too, come back over top. Now we're going to flip this upside down. I'm going to grab both sides of this, I'm going to bend them back, and I'm going to drive some thread wraps actually in front of that mono, okay? So important to drive some thread wraps in there. That's going to actually prop those up a bit for us. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing. Build a bit of a thread down just in front of the mono, but behind the eyes. And you can kind of work with this a little bit. You can situate it. You can spread it a bit if you need to. But the point of these, sitting where they are, is if it comes along and it hits a weed, it deflects the weed off the hook. So that's good where it is. The only thing I'm going to adjust here now is just the length. So it doesn't need to be any longer than that hook, at least not very much. So I'm going to trim these up so they just encompass that length of that hook. And now when that weed comes by, it's not going to trap that. You're going to be able to get that right past those weeds, okay? So let's go ahead in here. Let's whip finish this fly now that we're here. This is going to be a good one to add a little bit of resin to, as we don't want any of this stuff to move. I'm going to go to my Solarez Bone Dry. I'm going to flip this upside down. I'm going to cover up especially that work right at the head, because I don't want that stuff to go anywhere. I'm going to hit it with my torch. You can also UV resin on top of all that fibers we put in up here. All that blend we did, you can put some in there. Mine is good and secured. I'm not too worried about it right there, but you can if you like. Now the last piece of this puzzle it's pretty important, this part, is that we come in here and we bar this tail. This totally changes the appearance of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, put some nice big thick bars with a permanent marker. Make sure you get top, bottom, and sides. Leave a little space in it. Bar it as it goes back. Try to evenly space out those bars as well, best you can. And there you have it, guys. There is your Kwan Fly. I promise if you add this to your box and you're going to look for some bonefish or anything else in the flats, you're probably going to be successful with this pattern. All right, guys. Again, this is Tim Hepworth with Fly Fishing Bover Outfitters and Thursday Night Live Fly Tying. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. And I hope that we see you next week when we get back to some more quick ties. Cheers.